So here we are again back where we started, with some people a little bit poorer, a couple of wars going on. There's the potential to ally with the Ottomans to help them, as if they're a minor. They're just harder to deal with than the German miners, for example. And you know, warfare isn't necessarily the best way towards victory. This is a victory point as long as the Austrians can hold it, but it's really not that huge a value. Look at the big swing on the Catholicism, the danger of France getting a quick science point before the censuses even start happening. Of course, here we have the Spaniards heading towards the art points. Those are nice, the coins, because they're permanent points. Nobody can take them away from you. Of course, if you're sitting on permanent points, people might take other things away from you. But it's tough to, you know, it's possible to take territories away from you, and those are worth 2 victory points each, your home territories. So there's that consideration in play. Anyway, we're back around to England making its decision as to how to play its cards, and everybody's got pretty much the same hand, or maybe a little weaker this time. Okay, well, I've been away from the table for a while, and I think that's going to be common with this, because it's I've got some things going on right now where I'm not going to be able to play very solidly beyond and above work. So England starts things off. They have a reorg action coming. You know, I've got somebody who has, hold on, one of these guys has a reaction that I'm interested in. So this guy has Stirring of the People. That's a defensive reaction. I'm not worried about that. Somebody I just looked at had one. I got to get back because I got to look at those. I have a couple of players who have responses that I may want to play, that not necessarily to defend them. This is the biggest one. It can cancel an activation that attempts to move Christendom. It's an iffy leader. It seems worth discarding to try to freeze Christendom towards the Catholic side at this point. So the English are doing a reorg. They know they want an artist, but they get 2 picks. I'm not sure which one to choose first. Now, if we look here, the reorganization action makes it look like you don't get to look at your luminaries as you're drawing them. Art's a long way away. This guy helps me with science already that I'm going to use here. If I'm going to be discharging a military leader, do I need more military? I have a decent number of these, so I think what I'm going to take is an artist and a military leader. And I get these in my hand. As far as I can tell. It doesn't really say. It adds new luminaries and retire ones you don't want. You add 2 and may eliminate 2 each time this action is used. What it doesn't explain is what I'm assuming, which is that you have to have them played as part of the action to eliminate them. I'm not sure that's the case. But anyway, I get to add these guys to my hand, and they look like they'll add some value to any potential defense. Since I was at 8, I didn't set anybody aside to get rid of. Let's see what we got over here. Now, whenever he returns his own, okay, I've got some kind of artistic action going on here. So I got a couple of, wow, I've got 3 artistic actions. Why am I putting so many people? It must be because I want to use this one. So this is going to advance 1 science and 1 art. And it's the bag that I haven't opened. Now, unfortunately, these guys look almost like the white bag. Yeah, this is not easy one-handed. All right. So right now I'm here, but let's finish the action because I don't bump people out of the way until this. I remove him and exhaust an idea. Alright, well. So I have two idea guys. This guy is really good on self-defense, so I'm going to exhaust William Penn, who's a good money maker under certain circumstances. Okay, so that takes care of my expense here. For each artist or craftsman that I'm also exhausting, I get $3. So that's two guys who give me $6 for taking that action. This guy is removed though. It's a powerful effect. And these guys don't add anything. They're just exhausted like Penn is. This guy goes here under the art pile. And that means we bump the English off of the two piles that they were at. These look like pastel crayons or something to me. Okay. Now we go to Petey. Petey's doing an attack. This is going to be against Poland again. What is my enhancement? Well, my enhancement is going to be the brutal power. So I think I don't have any exhausted cards, so Conde's ability doesn't seem to apply. So anyway, I'm going to be declaring three guys with two, and I guess I'm going against Poland again. I'll go against Podolia. And we're looking at 9, 10, -2 for the army comparison. Puts me down to 8. 8 dice doesn't sound like a lot. I think I've got, I've only got $1. I'll throw it in. I hope I don't need it for this next action. This next action gives me a pile of money. Okay. So I'm going to attack the Poles here, and I've declared what I'm using. The Poles aren't sure. Sweden might well be attacking them. I don't know why Peter arranged the cards as the way he did, but let's see what we have for the Poles for defense. I have this Stirring the People, which will increase the defense rating by 1. This, which is not going to help me unless I end up with a negotiation situation. I probably shouldn't have. Well, I can count on beating Sweden in a negotiation pretty much no matter what. But, okay. So I think I'm going to have to play everything here. I'll save my money because that might be useful later. So, do I have an enhancement? I have this Marshall. Yeah, I'm going to hold on to this as well. I'm just going to play these. So I have 7 with an enhancement, 8, 9, 10, 11. And we had said with him it was 9, 10, 11, but I'm back 2. That's an automatic failure. This is going to fatigue Sobieski's defenses. I failed to advance the anti-Catholic cause. So this fails for Peter. And he wasted an action. Of course, he may have opened things up for the Swedes there. And maybe this was an agreement between Sweden and Russia, to make up for the fact that Sweden always goes first in that ordering. All right. Cutting over here. We're doing some art. That's That's a response. That's not a... Anytime... Yeah, he shouldn't be in here. I don't know what I'm doing. But this is a response I wanted in my hand. I probably thought it was an enhancement. So, criticism, form, and poetry. I roll a die. And... 6. 6 is no effect. I have to exhaust him, and I have to exhaust a point of politics, which is why I had him in my hand. And that's all that happens. Since it wasn't advanced, I'll keep him available as a potential effect for later. Over here to Leopold. Blucher, overseas trader. He gives, or Bicker, I'm sorry. He takes $2 from each colonial power. Well, that's pretty dicky. I hope it looks like I'm going to have too much money again. Shit. I do things in the wrong damn order. Yeah, well, we're going to live with our mistake in this case because I can't reprogram. I had something else here, a reorg, which wasn't going to take money away. Okay, but I grabbed a bunch of cash. Unfortunately, I can only hold 14 of these bucks, so 5 of them get discarded. Too much to keep track of for me right now. Okay, over to Spain. I was doing okay before, I think. All right, the action is conspicuous consumption. This is going to cost me $5 to do. So I pay that. Note that that's discard rather than exhaust. That's important. And I get 2 art. And this is Spain. And now the patron of the arts. And now, does anybody have the ability to screw with this? I mean, I checked all these responses, right? When included in an action that gains art, no, but when included in an action that gains harps, art, I gain a religion, but I have to exhaust him, and I have to exhaust a point of wealth. And that looks like it's his job, or is it Newton's job? Is Newton doing anything for me? Because this guy's a decent defender, so I'll exhaust Newton. I hope I don't need him for my other action. Doesn't look like it. Okay. So I'm going to gain a point of religious value as well. And I exhausted the wealth. This guy's exhausted. Did he advance 2? I think so. And now we go over to here and we can respond this and say, hey, Catholicism was just increased. I'm going to get myself a point on the art track, and that knocks the Swedes off of that first position there, expending him. And you can see, you know, with these responses and everything, in a big multiplayer game, it might be hard to keep track of everything that's going on, even just from your own position, not just not just this huge multiplayer solo. So my action's going to be innovative architect. I get an art and a science, and I'm also going to get $3 for this guy, and I'm sorry, not an art and a science. I get a Catholicism and a science, and this guy's going to be triggering his effect as well. So for the French, I get an art and a science. I'm sorry, a religion and a science. Well, the religion's already there, so it was not advanced, actually. That's my reading of it. So all I get is the science, but that science gets me this. And I now have a victory point marker. That's one victory point that's mine. He's removed from the game, but since I flipped another artist, I'm going to get $3 for that. And I'll have to pop those out. And then these guys are exhausted. So the English are going to play this Great Dane here. That's going to give them a science, and then I have an enhancement based on that. But I have to discard, or fatigue, or whatever, some politics. And I suspect that's going to be this Jan Voss here. He looks pretty questionable. So I'll exhaust him for his politics value. And then I get a point of science. And this enhancement is added to any action that will gain you science. If the outcome is successful, it is, gain an additional move here. Now wait a minute. This is not an action that's trying to move Christendom. This is some side effect from the enhancement, so I can't cancel that. And I get a buck. As well. And we gotta make sure I'm not over my limits. And then both of these are exhausted. Now I got my science, that means I kick, that looks like it's probably this guy, off. Alright, over to the Swedes, and we bet they're making an attack. Yes, they are. Our attacks are the Lord Protector, who we probably want to use for our enhancement. Although, we have a pretty hefty negotiation capability, except that Monk gets removed, and his ratings don't count if I use his special ability, which is to turn it into a negotiation. Plus, we have a penalty in negotiation. So I'm going to be using an enhancement with this. I'm looking at 9. Plus 3 if I go by land. That sounds good. 9, 10, 11, 12. I'll be facing Courland, which is a 2. Now I kind of remember that he has a card that raises that to 3. So 12. We're going to throw $5 in. And we know that's like 17. That sounds pretty good. Now for Sobieski's defense, we don't have much, but we have this, which will raise the people, and we'll throw $5 more in. And now we see. So now we actually calculate it instead of just doing it in our head. And what we have is 4, 9, 10, 11, 12. Both guys sent $5 in. So 12 it is. This money's spent. Even if we go to negotiation, it's gone. So we're looking at 12 dice, needing 3 successes for a negotiation. And that looks unlikely. And that fails. And you can see warfare is generally not a great option. You know, I mean, Poland was down to nothing. Swedes could have thrown more money in. There's no limit to how much you can throw in beyond, you know, your financial maximum, basically. All right, over to Peter. Peter's going to go, and he's going to go a pirating. He didn't feel like this was a very useful guy with just cash and no politics. So I get to choose a colonial power to pirate, and I can take half their money. Well, who do I feel is doing well? I feel like Spain and France are doing well. I'm going to hit Spain. We're going to make sure that they don't have Horatio Hornblower. They do not have an anti-pirate card available to them. So that means I'm going to take... Oh, actually, who has the most money? We're gonna hit England. Right? They're at 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 to less. Yeah, half their money sounds good. So let's check the English, make sure they don't have an anti-pirate. These three are not. Somebody has horn gold. I think it's the Roman Empire, the Holy Roman Empire. This doesn't help. Okay. Which means half rounded which way? Rounded down, so I get $9 off the English. That's pretty impressive. And he's gone. There goes Long Ben. Strangely, he's not listed as having any lifespan. He must be in this era. I'm surprised he's not in Berg's game Blackbeard. I certainly don't remember him. Okay, and we come around to the Poles, and the Poles do something. Okay, a corrupt murderer. Force an opponent to remove a random favorite from their exhausted pile and replace them with a newly drawn luminary. And this gets rid of this kind of crappy guy. Okay, well, I'm curious as to what Peter is going to be a favorite. Peter's got 2 favorites. And of course, that's from the exhausted pile, which is, you know, some places in the rules it says you flip them over in here. They wouldn't be in your normal exhausted pile, so I don't know. Whereas here we've got Penn, who we're probably not even concerned about, and Cromwell. So the question is, do we go after Cromwell, or are we going after Louis and the Patriarch? I'm going to shoot after Cromwell, which means there's, say, odds it's Cromwell, evens it's Penn. Okay, we got Cromwell. So he's gone from the Swedes, and that's a hefty blow. And he's replaced with a newly drawn luminary. No statement as to what type of luminary, but we just lost our best military leader. We'll draw another military leader, and presumably, it's Woodes Rogers, piracy response. Presumably he goes in the exhausted pile because he's getting replaced. That's the only way I can, fully justify that wording. Okay, so that's what Sobieski does. He says, screw you, man. Keep attacking me, pissing me off. Okay, over to Leopold. Leopold's doing a reorganization, and he's trashing one of the piracy responses. It's totally useless to him, except as a kind of weak military leader. However, I don't know what I want off of this reorg. And I'm going to have to look at my cards and try to make a determination as to, which of the different options I want to take. So with the first coin in the science track already gone, I'm considering that I would like art because religion probably works towards it, but I'd also like to get a military leader because I don't feel like I have enough of those. So that's what I'm going to draw. And I get somebody who's going to give me an advancement in art. And I get a really good combat leader. One thing the game has is a real heavy preponderance of leaders from England especially. And I think that's a, sort of a cultural centric view in the game, is that, those of us who play games are most used to, especially the Western European leaders, and most especially the English. And so there's a really high proportion of English than French, and everything else is kind of lesser. And that kind of makes sense. These were, the major powers in the era, but it does mean that most of the other countries are stocked with like English leaders. Okay, roll a die, 1 to 2. So this is going to give me just some random crap, and I don't have to pay anything for it except him. I roll a 5. 3 through 6, I get $3. Okay, I got room for that, so we'll take that. And finally we go up to the French. And you can see some of these things aren't really helping anyone. Obviously the war over here isn't helping anyone. It's just not moving. But likewise, something like this. Hey, I just got some cash. I didn't get any movement on the tracks. Would have been nice if I had gotten the art token and gotten some distance here. But that's just not happening. For France, my action is going to be to advance a science, but I have to discard $3 in order to do this. I'm running kind of low on money. I do have an option not to take this if I don't have much money in here. Over here, it looks like I'm only getting $2. I'm going to fall behind. That means I'm going to lose a luminary. I'm willing to do that. Okay. So now, and I think I can exclude my favorites from those, but I'm not sure. So now I advance 1 science. And then this guy, I just advanced the science, I get an additional science. And you can see France is just cooking along on that chart. However, I am going to lose some luminaries. I'll have to do a reorg to take it back. If I had territories I had conquered, that would be an even harder call, because that's a victory point you're throwing away. But it's also an income drain that you're throwing away. Now I have to go through and calculate out what everybody's cash is. I'll probably come back and cry about the fact that the French are going to lose someone. I do find as I'm forgetting I should have had a couple extra dice here because of his special ability. On the other hand, Sobieski could use 2 enhancements in military. Maybe he had another one he could have used in there. It's really hard to keep track of the special powers as well as all these cards that have different effects and everything. And it probably, again, is not trivial when you're playing it, you know, in a big multiplayer setting, looking at all the other people's stuff, I know that I'm always forgetting that kind of crap when I'm playing in those circumstances. Playing a 2-player, it wasn't too hard. I could really focus on what I had because I only had 1 opponent to pay attention to. French lost Hook, which kind of sucks because next turn they'd have bumped up and gotten the 2nd coin the way they're set up. But, you know, they've gotten quite a bit of distance off the science process. So, and they can still move forward on it, from what I understand. Now, from what I remember of their chips. Now we just replenish hands. I don't think anybody's over 10 cards total. There may be some people who are. I'll check that. And otherwise, then the turn order moves over to Charles, and we do the process all over again as we move into turn 3 here. Okay, so here for the 3rd turn, everybody's actions are down. We start with Sweden, and it looks like they're doing another attack. You might ask why they're doing this. Well, they've kind of come to this agreement with Russia. They're going to try to screw Poland over hard, in part to move this sucker. But now, Poland's not doing that well because they have to keep a defensive hand all the time. Probably the leader right now is France, I would guess, which is something England ought to keep in mind because they have a bonus against the leader. Anyway, what do I have? I have, and I kind of have to look, I can get money from using Stuyvesant here. Or I could execute myself, actually, is what I'm looking at. I think I'm going to probably use that as my enhancement. But maybe I want to get rid of Stuyvesant. Stuyvesant's a nice money maker, though. But my points are 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I'm going once more after Courland. 12. Put me to 15 on land. We'll put some money in. I'm only going to be producing 2 money, which means I got to leave him money for that. This guy does not use up money, so I'll throw in $4 into my attack. Now take a quick look at Sobieski, see what he's going to do. I'm going to use Turin, and I'll throw Kid in as well. So now I know what I've got here, but I'm also expecting a Russian attack, and probably want to keep you know, this guy and maybe some of the money to face the Russians. So I've only got 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Turin's really useful. So that's what we're going to place at. And now we got to see. I said 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And what am I going to declare? I can make this into a negotiation. But I've got a penalty with that, and that would kill Monk. So I'll use him because I don't want to lose Stuyvesant. And I'm going to use him to kill himself. What did I say? 4, 8, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. To 7. That means I get 14 dice, and I need 3 successes to win. Not rolling very well. Okay, that's 2. Now I got 2 more dice, and that doesn't do it again. I will execute this guy. I'm not too impressed. He can execute other people instead, but it doesn't seem like there's any reason he can't execute himself. So, yeah, I know, except common sense. And we'll exhaust our leaders. And that did not work. And really, this war is hurting Russia and Sweden, having to use up actions more than it's hurting the Poles, because we're not gaining anything here. The Russians are taking a reorg. They didn't throw anyone out. I gotta think about who I want to draw though. We got religion and science coming up, and both of those are interesting. We might want to start preparing for them. Russia took a military and a science. This is a weird situation because see, you got to come in first or second on these tracks to get any score from it. So, you know, piddling into science at this point with France this far behind, I'm maybe looking at a 1 point over what may be a fairly competitive field. Sobieski's also doing a reorg. Given what he has, I think he's going to want, because Catholicism's doing quite well, so he's not really worried about the military, about the religious side, but he is kind of worried about his military capabilities. Money isn't too big a deal for him, so he's going to take a military, and I don't know why this is, it's horn gold. There aren't many left. I don't know. I gotta shuffle these. There might not be anything left that he really wants, so he's considering an art, but I'm not sure. The reason art is interesting to him is because he might be able to get things that get him those continuous advances, the way France has been getting. So he doesn't have to rely on the census that much for him. He's got more coming. He's got another artist here, and that gives him a religion as well, which could give him another art. So he's got the capability to generate a good deal of art, but might be interesting to compete on the science realm too. It's kind of a, even though I've got, you know, these great military leaders, and yeah, I didn't have another enhancement on here. Even though I've got this great military capability, it's not like I'm really using it for anything, and I'm not gaining any points while I'm being attacked from two sides. So it almost feels like I have to compete on that level instead. I have a general rule that I picked up from a guy from Buffalo, Pat Mitchell. We used to always, I guess the groups he was in always got into arguments about when you reshuffle the deck. Now in something like Dominion or something, it's pretty obvious. It's when you have to draw a new card, because you might be placing, you know, a card on top of your deck or something. But in this, it's somewhat less obvious, but that general rule is what I follow. So the military stack was not shuffled because more people might discard some. Over here we see Leopold. He's going to advance an art, and that doesn't cost him anything. He is this purplish color. This is the first time he's done one. And you know, it's funny because, like I said, Sobieski has a decent hand for artists. So that's going to go there. And I don't think anybody has a reaction to that. So, boom. Over here, yeah, someone else playing on that frame. Roll a die to advance. Now this is going to cost him, no. And the Spanish get a 3. They're just going to gain $3. And they can hold that. They get enough room. We go to the French, who are doing a reorg, and I have to think about what they're going to take. They're actually also doing a diplomacy. Interesting, yeah. They're so strong in science, they may want to start bulking up on art as well and see if they can shoot their way into that. English gained some money rolling on an art table. The French indeed took 2 artists. Now, here's the thing. France is in the lead, and this is one thing that feels kind of funny to me. The artistic, scientific advances and such not, I don't feel like those really should direct people's ire in the same way military advances do. And that's one thing I kind of don't like about this game. Now, of course, that applies to almost any game that has sort of a simple linear victory point system to it, as opposed to something where you may have personal goals instead. But by making France, you know, more powerful in the arts and sciences, that's attracting other people to say, hey, we better knock France down. So they may attract some military attention that way, especially from England, who gets a benefit by attacking the French that way. But they may be able to bring someone like the Spaniards in against France as well. And, you know, historically, nobody really cared how great your art was. They didn't tend to sack you for that reason. They tended to go after you because you were a threat to the peace, or because you held something really valuable to them. Anyway, here we are over in Sweden, and they're playing the art game. I have to get rid of a political and a wealth. And now I have this interesting situation where I have this guy. Since this guy gets removed, I'm going to use him. So he's not going to be, hopefully, part of that. I'm going to actually exhaust both my cards. That leaves me kind of defenseless. But I don't know if, you know, the number of cards you have available in any particular place is supposed to be common knowledge. But that allows me to do this. I advance 3 art. Boom. And then that triggers this because I am removing him from the game. Well, from my court for that activity. And that'll gain me another art and a buck. You can see that buck might be important. And that exhausts this. And we got another attack. Here comes Peter. And he's thrown a lot in. Now, he also has a pile of money, as much as Russia can have. So he has 4, 9, I don't have any exhausted units, so that's not useful. 10, 11, 12, 13. I'm going to use Nikon's enhancement. That's my intention. I guess these are probably discarded. 13. Did I have a naval dude? He's tripled when used over water, and I can remove him. You know what? He sucks for me. I don't really want a military over water guy. So I'm going to go from Novgorod, which has an anchor, and I'm going to go after Courland. Now this kind of pisses the Swedes off, but, you know, that may be the end of their working together. Yeah, but why do I have him in here? Well, I'm saying I'm using an enhancement. We'll see what the Poles seem to be doing. But my points base are 9, 12, 13. I'd rather get the religious movement if I can. So, okay, so that's 13, but I lose 2 if it's over land. And, gosh, Courland's still the easiest. I lose nothing if it's by water. So yeah, I'm going to go after Courland either way. So that's a 13. Now I have to decide how much money I want to throw in. He's got a good stack. I am producing a lot of money here. 4 and 2, 4 and 5, 6 and 5. So I'm going to be producing $5. I'm going to throw $5 in. Make it 6. The reason 6 makes sense is I'll be producing enough money that if I fail this, I'm at 10. If I succeed at this, I'll be $1 behind, but that's okay. That puts me over to the Poles. Now the Poles have a handful of cards because they took a new leader or something, but they have no military ability. They have this response, which I'll do this. I'll raise Courland up to a 2, and that's about it. And I'll throw my money in, or raise it up to a 3. I'll throw my money in. So now, again, we calculate. You know, we did this in our head. I'm going to go with this. This doesn't sound like too big a power to me. I can actually calculate him. He's got a defensive 4 against me, basically. So I've got 1, 5, 10, 13, 19 to 4. I've got 15 dice, and I'll use Nikon as my dude. And we need 3 to get this to negotiation. And of course we get nothing. Okay, that's 1. Just 2, we failed. Everything's exhausted. And, you know, again, I might have wanted to get rid of Calico Jack, but I would have wanted to do that when I had Nikon committed to making money for me instead. And, you know, when I played 2-player, the die rolls were a lot better. better. Combat actually achieved things. Here it's not achieving a damn thing. Over here. Okay, here we go. We're going to have to exhaust this dude and a political. I have a political. He's not going to help at this point, so we get rid of him. Let's see if I get a religious advance. So I roll a die. And I get a 3, which says I get a Catholic advance, and that's it. Okay. But I got a Catholic advance, so I can respond with him, and that means I gain an artistic advance. And I bump the Austrians off there. The futility of being at the low end of the chart, eh? Alright, what about Leopold? Leopold's attacking something. What's he attacking? Well, Leopold likes the idea that Moldavia here is only a 2. And what's more is I can get into the Ukraine if need be. Maybe help my buddy Poland, because there's a line going across here, and I can get, I can actually take this territory and I can convert it, which would shove things towards Catholicism if need be. As it is, though, I'm just attacking the Ottomans. Do I have an enhancement that I want to use? I'm going to use Master of Siege. This just exhausts him. He gets double, so he's at 8, 12, 15, 21. The Ottomans have no defensive value at all for some reason. So I get 21 dice, and I'm going to need 3 to succeed. There's 1. There's 2. There's 3. We've succeeded. Now, someone, England, has a way to bone this. They're kind of not really happy. I have this Defender of the Crown. It seems like I don't have the guy available. England had a guy available who could trump in on these. So, we have succeeded in another battle. We gain this. We don't get any religious bonus off of it, but that's okay. Well, there's nothing that was going to happen from that. We go over to the Spanish, and the Spanish are taking an action. I'm going to have to discard $5 to use him, and it'll create art, and that'll trigger this guy, which could create religion. I don't need to do it though, so I'm not going to exhaust any value there. So what I have to do is I have to discard $5. You can see some of these guys can be a real expense, but the value is high. As I get 2 more art, I get a victory point that can't be taken away from me. And these guys are both exhausted, even though I didn't use his ability. Go over to the French, and they're going to do a diplomacy. I think we're most worried about England attacking us. But it doesn't really help us to do diplomacy against England, because they have to declare war against us anyway. So then the question is there anyone that we'd like to help, or that might help us? And for that, well, making an alliance with Spain might be more useful than making an alliance with England, because what it means is we can help Spain if the English decide to attack them in the Netherlands. Yeah, we may not think that's likely to happen, but basically we had an action we didn't know what to do with. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to expend 5 of my political, and sign a treaty between France and Spain. And I think I got enough battery left to do whatever England's doing, which is science. I'm going to have to exhaust a political. And going last at this point, I know that this is no big deal. However, I may want to exhaust my least valuable of these guys. I'm going to exhaust Roberts, just in case I have more cards available. And that's going to gain me a science, bonk. And now using him, I succeeded. So I'll gain a religion. And again, I can't use this because this isn't the base action here. And looks like a buck. Woo! And both of these are exhausted. And now we're at kind of that end of turn phase where I got to calculate the incomes. And we'll see what people come to. I think the French are going to actually be scoring a decent amount of money this turn, from what I recall. As we push forward to turn 4, everyone has some money. Swedes are kind of the poor folk on block. Another thing that's kind of interesting here. Ooh, I haven't counted the English guys. 1, 2 there. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Is that nobody has exceeded 10 luminaries. This is very different from how I was playing in the 2-player game, where we gained additional luminaries. There's some advantage to grabbing extra guys in the middle of your turn, especially for defense. And if you don't have to commit people to die, it's very seductive to keep pulling new cards, especially if you don't have what you really want. But the thing is, you don't want to end up with a pile in here, because then you start getting random guys. Now, you're always going to get your favorites, but that you use. So you can use them for free, although sometimes they're not particularly the people you want, but you're stuck with them. They're favorites after all. But if you start getting a random pile in there, you can't really determine what you're going to be able to do on an upcoming turn. You may end up with a military hand when you need to go into a census or whatever. So it's kind of a good idea to try to keep control of what your deck is like. This may be a little extreme. Having a couple extra guys might be useful, except that people have been using guys that go away. So that's where we've gotten there. Anyway, we're moving into, yeah, this is the last of the unmarked turns, so I can actually just take this and put it like this. And when this turn is gone, that'll go away, and then, you know, we'll know for the rest of the game which pieces are in play and which ones are not. Well, where we are in the turn order without having to have an extra marker on the board is essentially what I'm trying to say. At this point, my feeling is the balance doesn't feel quite good enough. In 2 players, it was very good. It really was. We were in a tight neck-and-neck game, and it was actually pretty interesting. But in this many players, some of the cards are just significantly more powerful than others. And yes, nobody's used their, hey, go kill somebody else's exhausted luminary. That uses up one of your actions, one of your very limited actions. And there are probably a lot of people ahead of you, or at least a few. We got 2 people, France and Spain, who are not involved in wars and are doing very well. However, Austria also seems to be doing fairly well by getting itself involved in a war with the Ottomans, who most people can't even attack. Now, that may be sort of their bonus, but I don't see a whole hell of a lot of a disadvantage otherwise to Austria, right? I mean, I could have gotten the same kind of cards as France and Spain did. And then we have England, who kind of has been on a peaceful roll. Now, the problem with England is they have a pile of military leaders that they're not using. They have a couple of good arts and science leaders, but not quite as good as the ones France and Spain got. But the people who were driven more towards the military, well, they still have cards that advance, you know, I mean, for example, you see Poland's up here, but they have some cards that can advance the arts and sciences, but they're not the strong ones that France and Spain have. Now, there's a certain conjunction of cards you can kind of manage. So what you want to do is you want to get a good, rich card that produces maybe one or two of the value to you, and then something that gives you bonuses. And both of these countries actually invested fairly heavily in drawing from those stacks. So you could say, well, some of it is that, you know, some people invested heavily in military and others didn't. They should be attacking the people who didn't. And that may be the case, except that what we've seen with Poland, who didn't invest that heavily in military, I don't think, is that as long as you invested moderately in military, you can kind of defend yourself unless there's an alliance against you. Now, we're going to start seeing that outcome at this point, because I believe the Holy Roman Empire is going to make a move against Milan, which is Spanish, and it's going to be really hard for Spain to retake. And that will be a significant blow against the Spaniards, and then they can actually position themselves against the French as well. And this is important because the Catholic markers way over here, those are my competitors, and my competitors are doing very well on the science and art track. We have to band together, you know, and start attacking them. And, you know, if Austria makes a show of faith in that direction, maybe other countries can be convinced to. But not everyone can attack Spain. Austria can, France can, and Britain can, and that's really it. So we're not going to see the Eastern powers moving in to help with this. And in fact, the only thing that they can really do is leave Austria alone. And if Austria starts getting powerful, that's probably not going to happen. All right. So at this point, we're starting with Peter. And Peter's action is the vacuum pump. He's going to get himself some science. And then I'm going to use Prince Rupert, and I have to discard a buck, not exhaust. And we'll gain an additional from Rupert. So that gives me 3 science over there. Now, science looks like kind of a lost cause, but, well, that may mean it's easier to get second place in, and then perhaps, you know, if pushed further, actually provide a challenge for first place, even if I'm not going to get those coins. Puts me over to Sobieski, who's still doing his art. Now, I have 2 actions here. It's to my advantage to use this guy first, although he's kind of nice if we have an art census coming up, but that's a long ways away. So I am going to advance 2 art with him, and each additional arts and craftsman gives me 3 bucks. And this gets rid of the card, and this is one of the other things. The Spanish and French had some that they got rid of the card and got good bonus from. Now this guy is just along for the ride. He's not doing anything. And of course, these characters who were good go away, but they could come back. All right. What's this to Leopold? Now somebody... Oh, he has the portrait maker. I keep forgetting who has what responses. Arrow of Opulence. Advance in art. Yeah. Trying to get some place on those charts. I don't know what value it is, though. If you're not going for them strongly, you may not. It may be best just to ignore them. I've got 2 victory points tucked aside, and maybe my military capability will let me do other things, but I don't know. I can never make up my mind what I'm up to. Okay, Pietro de Cortona. Roll a die, see what he gets. Sounds good. He gets a 4, which says he gets 3 extra bucks if he has room for it, which he does. And that's the other thing. Some of these guys give you money, and if you roll, or don't give you what you expect. And if you play those guys and you don't get the advantages on here, well, kind of SOL. Over here, now this guy's an enhancement who's going to go away. So this is the main action, and he's a roll a die. And I roll a 5, which means I just get $3. And my enhancement did not help. I can see some of these guys are running down, and their advance might be slowed. We roll a die on him. He gets a 4. He gains a whole bunch of money, right? I can't see if that's a 5 or a 3. My eyes. That's a $5. Wow. Well, he was stupid to put first, wasn't he? Guess it doesn't matter too much. Over here to the Swedes, and they too are playing in the art market. They get a 5, that's $3, but nobody's getting any actual advances, which, you know, is why they're doing this. Getting money, that's great and all, but with the English, for example, they didn't even need it. Pulls us around for Peter again. I want to take a little break before I go to him. I need some more coffee and to do a couple things. Peter's doing another probably ineffective attack, and we'll go after Corland again, I guess, because we're better at naval anyway. 3. I could retrieve 2 cards from my exhausted pile and include them in the stack. I think I'll be doing that as my enhancement. So I'm at 11. I got an attack. I assume I'm going to be facing about that strength and defense, perhaps. So, we want to throw in what we can afford, and that's probably a lot. It looks like we're producing a lot of money. So we'll throw in all 7 of our bucks. That, of course, puts Sobieski in an interesting position. We actually don't know how much of that we're putting in. Now, Sobieski was going weaker. He's got Turenne here, and no one else who really helps him. We're interested in committing as much money as we can to this. It looks like we have enough cash to cover these. This is going to give me more cash, so in we go with $8. Okay. So we're committing one guy in enhancement and money. Now, I think we could kind of commit more guys. Oh, wait. We want to keep this. Yeah. And we're going to have more cash because of this guy next time around. Probably not. Alright, well, the Swedish stack doesn't look very big, so we'll hold just one guy. Okay. So now using Turenne, we have this. And our totals come out to 5, 6, 7, 8. Now instead we could add him. He would be a 6. And we get rid of a kind of annoying leader. Let's do that. Okay, so we're going to do a naval combat, which was what we were planning, and we're going to instead use the Jolly Roger here, which makes this a 9, 10, 11, 12, 17, 24. Naval ratings are the same. 24, 19. It's going to be 11 dice. and a lot of money. We need 3 successes, really. We got 1. We only got 1 success, so we failed again. If we'd gotten another one, we were as close as I think we've seen. There goes Captain Jack, or Calico Jack. Jack Rackham. If we had gotten the tie, we would have gone to the negotiation. Now, we probably wouldn't be good at that, but it's all we got. So, and Turin's back in. And we're just seeing total stalemate in terms of the land operations. Now, that may apply nicely in the Netherlands or something, but one thing the game doesn't do a good job of is representing the fortifications. So, for example, the Spanish Netherlands, heavily fortified. Nord would be heavily fortified. The Netherlands itself would be heavily fortified. And the chance of either side gaining much ground there doesn't really seem likely. Yeah, who knows? What is this guy kicking around for? Did I use him? I don't believe I did. He's a response, and we haven't seen him used, so I think he's just kicking around. Unless this guy gave some advantage for additional guys. I just pulled him off the top. Okay, I have Captain Kidd. I choose a colonial power to pirate, and I get to take $5 from them. That'll help my cash flow. Out of the colonial powers, France and Spain are the two that I'm most worried about victory point wise. Taking $5 from France looks like it's a more effective blow to them than to Spain, so I'm going to do that. And we check to see if France has any piracy, any anti-piracy. They do not. There's the anti-privateers responses and such. So basically, our pirate comes, throws $5. And we're seeing a lot of the pirates beginning to pile up in here, which means, you know, you can fund privateers again by drawing from there. Over here to Leopold. Oh, he's making an attack. And he needs to discard. Oh, jeez. You know, I forget about the Sobieski's possible bonus. He only had 1 dude there this time. I'll discharge DeWitt for the 5 because I'm making war with Spain. It's the 2 branches of the Habsburgs go to war. Okay, now what I know is, unfortunately, I would love to do this, I think, navally, but nah, Ayrton's good. I have to go after Milan. It's my close area. It's easy for me to take, and actually harder for the Spanish to take back. Almost impossible, actually, because it's landlocked. They'd have to find a route to it. So I'm looking at 8, or I could take half Spain's money with this. I'm going to count on Spain not being very powerful. I'm going to probably go with Morgan. We'll see how many cards they put out. But I have most of my money here. So I've got 8, 9, 10, 11 points of dudes. It's going to be land combat, so I'm back down to 9. I'll throw $10 in. That puts me to 19. Because I have a lot of money. And the Spaniards, who we're not really counting on being attacked because nobody's been doing it, may not have defended themselves terribly well. It's not going to be a naval battle. Is it likely I'm going to be attacked twice? Okay, I'm going to play this. I'm going to probably use his enhancement to double him to a 6, because I know he's got a decent number of guys. And he put 10 bucks in. I hate throwing that kind of money in. I am not producing all that much. I'm producing 8 bucks, which is 1 more than I need. I gotta discard 3 bucks, so I don't feel like I can throw all that much money into play. I'll throw only 7 into play. The target number is 2. Okay. So let's look at what our number would be if we don't use Ireton. 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 14. It's like 12. I'm going to throw Ireton in instead of Morgan, much as I'd love to grab all that money. And I was kind of counting on it. That's why I spent so much. But I'd also like to win. And this has to be a successful attack, which would be unlikely. Okay. So we're looking at 8, 12, 15. Make it 13 for the difference. Make it 16 for the difference in money. And he has 11. So we're only going to get 5 dice. I need 2 successes. Yeah, we wouldn't have had a chance with Morgan. 2 successes to bring this to negotiation. And we get 2 successes. Okay, so this is the first time that's happened. All the money gets cleared. These leaders, Churchill, are still available for the negotiations points. So we know he's got 4 negotiations points. He's got 2. Now I got to take a little pause, but I believe you can additionally enhance the negotiation. Attacker throws 2 more luminaries and his 4 bucks in. And here I know I'm going to lose, unless I throw all my money in. How big a deal is it for me to lose Milan? Well, now that I'm at war with Austria, it's going to be really hard for me to hold on to Milan. That's the problem. Naples is part of Spain too. Interesting. Can I take a 2 victory point hit and just say, okay, that's it? Or do I want to spend a huge quantity of cash and try to maintain this? And I think I'm just going to take the hit. So we've got 2 negotiation. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And that means that we've taken Milan. Now that increases, okay, D'Artagnan's dead. That increases the, these guys have any enhancement? No. That increases the maintenance costs that the Emperor has to pay. Unlike, oh, he's less capable. He should have been back at die. Damn it. I can't remember these things. You know, screw it. But, he doesn't have the benefit that the Spaniards have of that declining empire bonus, which allows them to not have to pay maintenance on things beyond their core, rather high maintenance. Okay, well, yeah, we needed money because this guy's a discard 5 bucks, and you know we want to do this. Advance 2 art, and then he gives us a religion, and now we have room to move this forward, but I have to exhaust a buck to use him. Do I have a buck on him? I do. I still have a guy left here who has a buck. So we got that religious move. Hey, Catholicism just got advanced. The Poles are going to advance their own artistic, and that bumps the Swedes down in that highly competitive track. Up here, I gotta discard $3 to exhaust a Medici and get some science. Now, I really would like to do this, but I have to make sure I can afford my army. It looks like I can. Looks like I have plenty of money. I was planning on cashing in on my money this turn, but buying a space is too important, since there's a coin just sitting there ready for me. Over to the English, and it would be a nice time for the English to attack, right? They have stuff they want to do. So I have to exhaust a political in order to play this. Now, unfortunately, it's all my military guys I have left. Roberts seems like as good an option as any now. Do we want to get rid of Newts? Newts has a... See, Newts has an advantage, actually. He's a response. I could have used him... Not that I remembered this, but I could have used him against Leopold. But I'm as worried about Spain as I am about Austria. So I'm okay with this. The only disadvantage to it is if Austria takes this, and they did, they really probably aren't going to be continuing against Spain. But maybe they'll turn against France, and maybe the Brits are willing to ally with Austria to try to begin a real war against France and Spain both. We'll see how that turns out. Right now, this really doesn't seem to be the case. I don't think there's anybody. I mean, if Sweden gains something on Poland, I don't really care, so I'm going to discard this guy. He's not terribly valuable. And that fuels Romer here, who gives me a science. And then this guy, that was successful, so we get an anti-Catholic and an extra buck. We don't have room for the buck. That's okay. The anti-Catholic, since we moved and they didn't, the science, we push the Ruskies back down on the science track. Getting those early leads is important because you don't get pushed around anymore. Okay. And that puts us to the final, which is the Swedes, who didn't attack. They're reorganizing. And I have to figure out what I want. I think I want to get rid of this guy, but I don't have to make that decision until I see my cards. He might be better than my cards, and then I can just exhaust him and throw him into the pile with whatever I got. Our tendency to fail at military, we drew a military, but we also took a religious. But remember, I just got rid of a luminary. That's why that guy was stacked in there. So I'm able to gain an art and a buck for exhausting him. And an art for me puts me here and pushes the poles down, and a buck is always useful, right? Yeah, unless you're full up. And that puts us to the economic maintenance and such, not where I do some bookkeeping going on, because we've gone through everyone. I think that's it. I probably won't come back on this video unless somebody goes bankrupt or, and loses something.